Good afternoon, all. How are we doing today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good
We're good.
afternoon.
How are you?
Good afternoon. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bullitt. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, good, good. I see that most of you are here. Good. I trust that you are all having a productive week and that you had an opportunity to read. I saw that some person sent in their homework. Very good. We were able to get those right back out to you. So at this time, you should know exactly where you stand. So kudos to the persons who are comfortably sitting in the course right now because they would have done their homework and they would have gotten feedback. So very good to those persons. And some persons didn't submit, but they wanted feedback, and so we would have gotten that information out to you as well. So did anybody have the opportunity to read the newspaper or attend their civic organization?
I'm a lawyer for him as a public defender.
I'm getting some feedback, but I'm not getting a response to my question. Are we
Hi,
there?
good evening.
Good evening.
How you doing, Ms. Bullitt?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, fine, and everyone.
Fine.
I had the opportunity to attend Toastmasters 7178 last evening, and it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting. They were celebrating past presidents of the club. The word for the day was risible, RISIBLE. I'll tell you what it means later because I really can't remember. But but they had basically two parts. They had like a quick tabletop section where they asked your thoughts. Sorry. Yes, where they ask your thoughts on certain topical events. For example, thoughts on persons expressing I guess what's the word? Demonstrating some type of demonstration against the visit of the royal couple. They had they had different questions about beach or bar. What would you do to get your vision, to get a renewed vision? They talk about the big red machine in Fox Hill, of course, my alma mater. They talked about, so they went through that, and so people quickly gave their opinions on that. And then they had about 4 longer presentations talking about different subjects on a renewed vision and the purpose of Toastmasters and what have you. So it was rather interesting and enjoyable.
Okay, so you found it beneficial and you think you may want to become a member?
I found it interesting. I don't know. I have done. I have, and I am a part of community groups or entities for years. So I don't know if I'll become a member, but I'll definitely participate in their events, their fundraising events.
Okay, so excellent. Did you get the opportunity to introduce yourself?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
Very good. So I would hope that some of those members are in your network and you follow through with, engaging in like-minded conversations with them. And like you said, with the helping with the community service. So very good. So very good. All right, up front, 5% your bonus. So very good. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you too. Okay, bye-bye.
Anybody, so did we get, I know last week was our first class and there was loads and loads of information and perhaps you may not had time to, digest all of it, but did we at least subscribe to our regulators pages and follow them on social media? Did anybody get that?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay, good. So you should start.
I did also.
Okay, good. You should start receiving loads of good information to, keep abreast of what's going on. And remember, your Facebook page, whatever countries you deal with, if it's just the Bahamas, then, subscribe to our news or ZNS. And sometimes the highlights will come across your page. If you deal with countries, Russia or Switzerland or what have you, you can sign up for their news as well. And that's how you can manage getting all that information all at once. Okay, did any of us watch the Netflix Dirty Money?
I did.
Started to watch
Yeah.
it.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I started to watch it.
Okay,
But
then.
I started to watch it. Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Bad manners. I started to watch it, but it started off with Volkswagen and how they was swinging people lying, saying that they were doing some sort of low emission diesel, and it turns out that they were using some sort of defective device. And but
Right.
it seems like every episode is something different.
Yes,
Yes.
so I wanted you to
I'm
watch
supposed to
the
be-
episode with the HSBC and the
Oh, so you
Mexican.
didn't want us to watch all those ones because I was watching them.
No.
It was quite interesting to see the things that they were actually
Doing.
letting you be privy to, because I would have never known that about Volkswagen.
Right, but now you realize, it used to be a very high-end luxury car. Now
Right.
millions of them are on the road, right?
Right.
cheap.
And now I'm thinking, but boy, every time one of them Jettas pass me now, I'm thinking, I wonder what this one doing there.
Right. So again, like I said, it's awareness training, but what I really want you to watch is the one on HSBC and the Mexican drug lord. So I think that's
That
about,
sound like season 2.
okay.
Yes.
I think it's about the 4th one. Patrick, do you remember which season it is?
I don't remember. I don't recall which season it, but it's yeah, that one that you referring to. I watched that twice actually.
Okay,
Very
and
very interesting.
give us an overview. Tell us what you learned.
Hong Kong. Well, it showed. I think what I got from it is that how the drug cartel in Mexico infiltrate
The
HS,
bank?
yes,
The bank.
HS, yeah, and how it gone all the way to the top.
Yes.
You
Right,
know,
all the way to the government, to the attorney general, who was also a little bit shady, right?
Yes,
He was
yes.
doing the job.
yes, and the measures or the repercussions was widespread. Instructions
Correct.
came down from England to say not to prosecute because they didn't want the bank to fail because of the repercussions that it had in the financial arena.
Industry.
Yeah,
Correct. And in the end, they got a slap on the wrist now.
yeah, they just got to
I
slap on the wrist.
attended, I
for the mo-
attended a seminar where persons were saying, oh my God, they got charged 1.9 billion. But we broke, right? So we thought that was a lot until we watched this movie and saw that they make this in 5 weeks, correct?
Correct.
They make that in probably maybe a day.
Oh, there you go.
With
There
the
you go.
industry, said it's a $14 billion industry, so that's huge.
Mhm.
That's huge. So the fine that was imposed upon them is only, like I said, it's only a slap. Because they laugh at the
They
courtroom.
laughed at that, yeah. They take
Yeah,
that
man.
out there, petty cash.
Yeah, that come out of the
That's
petty
about their
cash.
petty cash, yeah.
Yeah, they come out of the petty cash tin. But it shows how dirty money or drug money, I would use that word, how it can corrupt and infiltrate the banking system if there's no checks and balances in place, or there's no regime to curtail
Yeah,
those
safeguard.
yeah,
Yeah.
curtail those safeguard against those type of transactions.
Okay, and so I'm very happy that you found it interesting. And again, it's for awareness. So, it could be an eye opener because a lot of these things are what we never dream of, right? When we read about terrorism, we never dreamt that persons would go to the bank and get a loan, or they would use their social service checks. Now, lo and behold, the whole entire bank was working with the drug lords, and even after they were fined, they hired somebody who was not qualified to sit in that compliance position, okay? And so I don't want any of you, you're only an intro. This, like I said, it's a journey to going on to ICA. Don't take any positions that you are not qualified for or don't plan to get qualified for, because you can end up going to jail. Compliance is very, very risky, and these major organizations that are too big to fail, they sometimes take advantage of you. So ensure that you are aware, you know, you are qualified and have sufficient knowledge as well as education to sit in these positions. Okay, so very good. Anybody else wants to add to what Patrick told us? Gave us his overview.
What I may add too is that even if you take a position like that and if something instructions come down from the top and you're not comfortable with it, I would say, boss, I have to resign from this position. You get someone else.
Correct. And do your due diligence on these companies. Like I said, if you work in a Canadian bank, the Canadians are very conservative. Like they wouldn't do business like with Russia or the very high risk countries. They don't do business with high risk products and services. They don't have an appetite for it. However, if you work in the Swiss banks, they have an appetite for it. They're a little bit more risky. And you wanna, you know, some questions you wanna ask in the interview. Is your business predominantly high risk or low risk? Do you deal with high risk countries? If you do, which countries do you deal with? You know, do you have a compliance department, or do you have a one person? And how many accounts do you have? So these are pertinent questions that you should ask so you can safeguard yourself and ensure that, you know, you don't just have a nice office, lack of system, a cell phone, and a lot of money, and then you end up going to jail. Okay, so you want to protect yourself. And something very important, would normally the operations department monthly, they should check each customer's name and ensure that it's not hyphenated. They don't put a comma in it. There's no, you know, any other characters in the name that would cause the vetting system to pick that name up. So normally the systems in the commercial banks, in the offshore banks, or it's like World Check, they scan the names every night. However, if we misspell Patrick's name, then if there's a hit against his name, the system won't spit out a report and tell us Patrick has been arrested for money laundering. Or if his name is hyphenated, and sometimes just in data entry, we miss and put a comma or a hyphen or an underscore, any character, or perhaps we put a full stop at the end of the name. All those things prevent the system from picking up those names when they scan overnight. Okay, so what the operations department should do is check that everybody's name is spelled correctly, no aliases are used, and that the system, like how Steen has her Steen L.A. Campbell with those periods there, that would prevent the system from picking up her name. And so you want to make sure you scrub and clean your system so everybody is being checked and the system is effectively working. Okay, just a little tip so you safeguard yourself. Anybody else wants to add to it? Anything else that stood out to them in the movie?
Well,
Go ahead.
I watched the episode. Good afternoon, everybody. I watched the episode where the race car driver opened up a small, I guess it was a cash, loan business. That one stood out a lot to me. And what stood out to me the most about it is him using the Native Americans to safeguard himself in ownership of the business because he knew what he was doing. And I guess they have some law in the United States where the Native Americans cannot be touched when it comes to certain things. And what he was doing was he was loaning the money to people, but he had little fine prints in the
agreements
that he gave the clients, and basically where he was swinging them was where every time, I think, when the loan is going to end, if they didn't make this certain amount in payment, it basically started the loan over.
right?
So when
And
it
so
started the loan over, they were just deducting more money out of the client's bank account. And every time the client saw that the payment, instead of it being the $45 or the $100 that they had left, it was like double or triple the amount. And every time they called in to query, the situation, he had his people stationed in a different country, answering the telephones and basically giving them the runaround. It was sad that his brother, I guess, due to the pressure, his brother ended up killing himself because of what was going on. But basically now, I guess he's not doing that well dealing with the
legality of it now, because they are trying to send him to jail, right? He's trying to get out of jail.
They were trying to send him to jail.
And they froze a lot of his assets.
Yeah, they really did him in because of it.
But he really ripped off a lot of people.
And they just come in for very, very small loans, so that was a lot for them to deal with because they already, had a lot going on financially. So just to clear little car payments or just to, pay their light bills so they don't get disconnected.
Yeah, payday loans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he took advantage of that. So please read the fine print, and as the compliance department, when the organization offers a product or service, they have a lot of like on-the-spot financing or reduced rates or a particular card for teachers or some type of incentive, with a product or service to attract customers. What compliance should do is read the fine prints, ensure that the company is in line with the law and not, making such a deal too good to refuse, but ripping off the customers. And so that is compliance job, to read the fine print, get information on the product and service, and make sure that the customers are being protected. Okay, so Tanishka, very, very good. Yeah, it's sad what happened, but again, like I said, all of this is for awareness, and we want to ensure that you go into these positions and you know exactly, the risk associated with having this position and all these things that you need to look out for, because you can't say that, the compliance officer, if they even had one back then, because that was back in the day, if they had one, the compliance officer cannot say, but I didn't know this was the outcome or this was happening, because compliance is responsible for complaints. So each complaint that a customer makes a copy of it should go into the compliance department, and the compliance department should ensure that that customer's complaint is satisfied and investigated properly. Okay, and then the regulator checks with compliance. Let me know the number of complaints you have. Let me know which ones are outstanding. So you have to take these things seriously because they can escalate. Okay, very good, Renita, go ahead.
My question is, I noticed we have a lot of those payday loans, places popping up over here. Does central bank keep a hand in what's going on with them as the overall regulator?
Yeah, so they are considered money services businesses, and they are now regulated by the central bank. And so they have an eye on, the products and services, and just like banks and the credit unions, they have deliverables that need to be sent and checked, daily. And so they have a hand on it. Not saying some of them, like I say, or you can mitigate risk, you cannot eliminate it. And this is why I want you to watch these things, so you get some awareness and to the possibilities or the inherent risks that's associated with your business. And so what you need to be able to do is if somebody does infiltrate your system, or if the company does something like this occurs, let's look at Wells Fargo, where they did all those fictitious accounts, you know, and only a certain group of persons participated. However, everybody else was negligent, you know, and so 4,000, I think 300 persons got fired.
So, Ms.
And-
Bullard,
Yes.
in that Wells Fargo episode, that was so interesting to me. They had where the employees, so that they could meet those targets that was so high and unexpected. that they
Ridiculous.
had, sorry?
And ridiculous, yes.
Yeah, and they had the employees creating fake people. Or if they know that, like, say, if I have an account and I've already completed the request for one account, and that person has a target, they just decide to open up several other accounts under my name. So that brings to light something like what you were saying, when compliance runs your name through a system. And then you could possibly end up with so much charges because you don't even know these things are under your name.
Yes, correct. And that happened at Wells Fargo, and something similar happened right here to two of the major Canadian banks. These organizations, for the most part, they look at the bottom line, right? And they do not set SMART goals. And this is another chapter the compliance department has to make. You have to make sure that the goals are realistic. So let's look back to 2020 when the pandemic started. Normally goals are set in January. So the goals are set and they are distributed. They must be specific, measurable, and attainable. Okay. Then you have to go back and check them again, because you got to look at the economy. Does it make sense to tell you know, your account managers you have to bring in $10,000 or $10 million worth of loans, and the economy is on a downturn, you know, and then there's a pandemic? So back in, I would say 2016, 17-ish, one of the major Canadian banks let 134 account officers go because they simply did not meet their targets. When they got their targets for that year, nobody spoke up and said, these are not attainable. Look at the economy. Our target market are these persons. Let's just say Atlantis, the hotel is closed. It's impossible for us to get $10 million from Atlantis. However, nobody said anything and everybody got fired. So some of those fired persons went over to the next Canadian bank, okay? And they knew that they already got fired for not meeting targets. So they went there, and what they did is, the Canadian bank as well, they didn't speak up. And again, these ridiculous, non-attainable goals were set. And at the end of the year, what happens is whomever is the highest or the salesperson of the year gets a cruise, or they get a lot of money and they get a lot of accolades. So here it is, we're sitting in to the Christmas party where they announced who was the salesperson of the year. And the salesperson of the year came out of Freeport. What y'all think about that? Isn't that like, I mean, you don't even have to work in the bank. Well, isn't that the red flag of all red flags?
Red flag.
Okay, so you could hear the entire audience gasp. Like in Nassau, in the main branch, we weren't able to make this money, but the person in Freeport did it. And we were doing an external audit. They had just invited us. And I can tell you the next day, we had at least 50 persons email into audit and ask, can that be verified? Because there's no way possible with the economy in Freeport the way it is, that the Freeport person beat the Nassau person. Okay. And so of course, even we gasped and it's like, no, this can't be so. And so of course we went on an investigation and we found out that if persons went in to just get an update on their credit card, or they say increase my limit, they wouldn't increase the limit. They would give an entire new credit card because the increased limit would not give them any points.
Yeah.
So they gave you a new credit card, a line of credit and insurance. One person even got a mortgage. Don't ask me how. okay? Anything would could generate points. And so what they would do is before the first payment came out, they would close out all these extra things in the system, okay? And so normally, once you book the loan or whatever the line of credit, then we give you the points right away. We check a week after. And so about the third week, she was closing out all those extra, you know, and we found at least five of them doing that, you know, pretending that they made their targets and they didn't. Then we looked at the money, and the amount of revenue definitely did not meet the, you know, amount of accounts. And again, they were just desperate because they had lost their job already. Nobody was able to speak up. Compliance didn't step in and say, these are not realistic goals. But of course now compliance has a hand on that. Okay, so if you're in a account opening position or a sales position, please, if the goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and realistic.
Relevant.
Yeah, relevant or realistic.
Or
right?
realistic.
Yeah, and if they're not, please
Miss
speak.
Bullet, I work in one of those Canadian banks, you know, for about 8 years. And one of them, they famous for unrealistic goals.
Okay,
Famous.
Almost all.
Famous. That's the one. We've been there for 100 years.
Yes,
Famous.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So again, you have to come together and speak up. And if you're not being heard, then slip a note to compliance and say, please, can you, you know, look at the economy and look at the goals and look at our target market and let us know with all these restrictions and policies and the downturn in the economy, are these goals realistic? And
But the thing is,
compliance
Ms.
should be
Bullet,
able to step in and assist you.
with that Wells Fargo thing,
Mhm.
there was the lady who spoke, and she said that the more she spoke out about what was going on, she said she was always exceeding whatever her targets were. She brought this to light, and the more she brought it to light, the more they rated her as not completing her task. And eventually they got it to the point where they said that they let her go because she failed to meet target. But it was only because she was kind of like being a whistleblower.
Correct.
Kept pushing it because, you know, she was saying it wasn't making sense. And she was pointing these things out to them, to the point where I think it became a part of the lawsuit, some of the lawsuits that were going on against Wells Fargo.
Correct. And again, these things are very real and they do happen. But what we don't blow the whistle, why? Because we don't want to be ostracized. We don't want to be victimized. Then we say, oh, my children's school fee. Or I have a mortgage to pay. I need this job. But can you do the job from jail? Will you pay school fee from jail? Okay, so like I said, gone are the days when we can take these chances. Only poor people is going to jail, right? The rich may get away with it, but the poor people don't get away with it. So I always encourage everybody to have like 5 revenue streams, okay? 5 different things that you can depend on if this 9 to 5 does not work. Okay, so there's a small business development center out there. Think about like Steve Harvey says, if you could bake apple pies and start to sell it to your friend. If you could come together, like I said, those 5 people that you hang out with on the weekends, party for 3 weekends. One weekend, you all get together and you all brainstorm. Okay, let's get together and let's open up a business so we can survive, especially if you work in the compliance department, so you do not have to compromise yourself. Okay, when they tell you, you know, you could either resign if you blow the whistle, or if they let you go, you can still survive. Okay, and I'm telling you, it's very real today. So car washes, barbershops, whatever you are good at, please try and venture out and do not solely depend on a 9 to 5. Okay, and over a course of a lifespan, somebody has died, somebody's lose their job, have something to fall back on. Okay, or so you're not compromised, or you go to jail.
Ms. Bullet, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as it relates to whistleblowing, right? Are you talking about this a salesperson going into their sending notes of compliance? Okay, what about if a person like send a note to I get the regulator.
Okay, so you should, there's a chain of command. There is a chain of command, right? So you should first have a conversation with your manager, right? And then when your manager goes to management meeting, then they should talk to the CEO, who will, compliance should be there, or the board, right? So you do give the organization the opportunity to correct a wrong first, or give you, let me use Royal Bank and the $20 note. Okay, so Royal Bank with the $20 note, I think they sent information out to their staff saying they would do this. Some staff members wrote back into them and told Royal Bank how inconvenient it would be for them. Some retirees wrote in and said this would be inconvenient for us as well. And they don't think the public at large would feel that Royal Bank is the first choice for customers. However, Royal Bank went ahead and they said, oh, not many people use the $20. We're going to turn it off, blah, 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 blah. They turned off the $20 and public outcry, and persons wrote into the central bank. And then those same retirees then got a response that, okay, we're sorry you didn't listen. We apologize and we'll put the $20 back on. Okay, so follow the chain of command first, give them the opportunity. And then if you don't feel that there's anybody confidential in your
That's what I mean.
Company.
That's what I mean.
Right. Okay, so then you could send an anonymous letter directly to the compliance department and just say CC the regulator. That's all. If you don't feel that there's anybody you could trust, or they are not going to do anything about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, okay, good. Good, right. Anybody reading the newspaper? Nobody reading. What type of compliance officers y'all is?
Yeah.
Y'all in here.
Every day when I get my coffee, Wendy's just give it to you for free.
Okay, so tell me what happened.
Yes, mommy reading.
You read the newspaper, the IMF report?
All I know is they saying that we should increase VAT, and we need to figure out where the money coming from.
And central bank said they got plenty Russian dollars in there.
That's the only one I read.
Dollars in the Bahamas.
Yes, I read that Russian thing in the papers.
Billion.
Yes.
I want to know where it is, Miss
Was it 4 billion or 4 million?
Billion.
It was billion. Yeah, it right in the Swiss
4
bank.
billion.
Yeah, it right in the Swiss bank.
Hello?
A company that I worked for before, they have a large Russian portfolio. Yeah, and my like I said, 1 week I paid salaries to Russia. The next week they said we don't do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. And I think at that time Russia was 20 something. Yeah, so it's here and it's very real. Okay, and so what now the government is doing is those oligarchs or those very rich people with those $4 million are now going to put pressure on Putin and say, listen, I need my money. My company can't run. That's my operational money for my company, my children's school fee, my yacht fees, all trapped in the Bahamas. You must stop this war. So that's what they're hoping happens. So we'll see. We'll see. So
yeah, so I'm reading the paper as well. There was one article last Thursday, I think it was quite interesting. It was about these Bahamians who created a digital platform for compliance purposes to help companies gather information quickly on compliance.
Yeah.
I think what I found most interesting about it was that their view is that the Bahamas should now start compliance for our ports, particularly the airport with who's coming into our country.
Okay, very good. And again, there are going to be a lot of new technology. Remember, I encourage you to join the FinTech Hub. You must keep abreast, of the new developments. You must be forward thinking. When your company comes to the compliance department and requests an overview of this new technology, you should have already heard the name. You should already know what it's called, and you should have done some research on it already, okay? So please don't get left behind. Keep abreast. Remember to join that FinTech Hub. So you know what artificial intelligence is, okay? And you know the risks are associated with it. You know what crowdfunding is. You know who holds the platform in the Bahamas. You know who it is regulated by. Okay, so familiarize yourself with all these things. Sorry, okay, good. So very, very good. Okay, so good, thank you for sharing. We are on chapters 3 and 4 this week. I have an old version of the book, so I'm not certain, do you have the Bahamian legal system and then AML, CTF programs, or what is your chapter 3 and 4? Is it international standards?
International standards is chapter 3.
And chapter 4 is the Bahamian legal system.
Okay, okay, good. All right, fine. So did anybody have the opportunity to read it? Remember now, this is discussion based.
I'll read.
No, we ain't reading the book. You read already.
Yeah.
Go back, Doniqua. Come back, Doniqua. Where you going? You read this chapter already?
I did.
Okay, I talking to. I know you read it, Gator. Where's Doniqua? She going. She going away quickly.
Hi.
Okay, how you doing today? You read the chapter already?
No, I didn't. I thought you was asking for somebody to read.
Okay, okay. So since Gator read it already, Gator, give us a little overview of what you read and what you understand so far. Gator, you there?
Okay, so basically chapter 3 was just giving an overview of the different international standards, like the FATF and the CFATF, that's the Caribbean regional standards. Yeah, and like basically gives an overview of like what the FATF performs, like sets international standards and monitors compliance standards, and encourages non-FATF members with the standards. It also gives us like purpose, and also gives like what the FATF is and the grounds it stands on. And then the 40 recommendation, and which the Bahamas and where the Bahamas, yeah. And like that's basically the different changes, and it doesn't go in depth, but it just gives like an overview of the World Bank Group and the IMF, and like it just gives different definitions, I would say, of what the IMF is and what the World Bank does and all of that.
Okay, okay, good. So just an overview. And again, for the purpose of chapters 3 and of chapter 4, international standards refer to international regulators. So the international regulators are indeed the FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force. And of course, that task force is divided into sections of the world. So there's an Asian FATF, there's a European FATF, and of course, we are the Bahamas. Very popular multiple choice question. Which FATF is the Bahamas a part of? And of course, we are part of the Caribbean FATF. Okay, so these are international bodies that govern the world. So the central banks would essentially report into them. Okay, so that's the FATF, the OECD, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, and so on. Okay, and so this is how the laws are formulated. It's international standard. Then there is Bahamian law. Then there are guidelines from each regulator. And then there's an internal policy by the company. Okay, so just to say, where do these laws come from and where are they established? So of course, I think we would have looked at, I'm not certain if we looked at this already, but these are the 40 recommendations, and it's very important. I had somebody write an essay on the 212 version. Anytime you pull out a body of work, or when you go into Google and you do research, the older versions come up first. So the 2012 version would pop up, but you want to look for the most current version. I think there's a 2021 version out right now, but there are no major changes. But if you were going to reference it, you want to reference the most current copy. Okay, and then these are 134 pages. You'll be reading forever. You get overwhelmed. And so what you do is you scroll down and you go to the table of contents. Okay, and in the table of contents, if Ms. Bullis says we are looking for nonprofit organizations, you go right to nonprofit organizations, and to page, what is it? That's no, the reference number of the recommendation 8, but you go to that page, whatever page number it is, and you read it, and don't get caught up in reading a whole 134 pages for one thing. So these are the 40 recommendations. We are going to talk about a risk-based approach when we get, I guess, the pages, chapters 5 and 6. And so the very first recommendation, just again, this is just so you can have a visual, talks about countries assessing their risk. So the recommendation says countries must assess their risk, all of this. They must assess their risk, and then they must put controls in place to mitigate that risk. And so, of course, we took this recommendation and we put this in Bahamian law, okay? And in Bahamian law, we would see, again, we want to go to this is the Proceeds of Crime Act, and we want to go down, I think the FTRA is in here somewhere, right here, and we want to look at risk assessment. So it tells us, page 14. And so from that recommendation 1, we would have put it in to Bahamian law, and in Bahamian law is the FTRA section 5 that talks about a risk assessment. Okay, so the FATF said it first, then the Bahamas put it in their law. Okay, every financial institution shall take appropriate measures to identify, assess, and understand its identified risk in relations to its facility holders, the countries and jurisdictions of its operations, and so on and so on. Okay, international standard, Bahamian law. Then we looked at the central bank guidelines. If you're a bank, you would follow guidelines from the central bank. If you're a broker dealer, from the Securities Commission. If you're a gaming house, you will follow it from the gaming board. Okay, and that's how it works. And so we put this into our law. And of course, if we didn't put it into law, what happens to us? If we did not, we say, we know they have 40 recommendations. We don't have time for all that. That's very expensive. That'll wipe out our financial system. What do they do?
They block
Sorry?
it.
Okay, good.
Blacklisted.
Very good, very good. We get blacklisted. So they call them recommendations, but we really, really don't have a choice. Okay, so again, when you are writing your essays, you may want to refer to the 40 recommendations, but you don't want to rehash the whole recommendation. Just write an overview of what the law says and what you should be doing. Okay, and again, make sure you look for the most current date. And in these recommendations from 1 to 8, they talk about policies and coordination, money laundering and confiscation, terrorist financing. And then when you reach the recommendation 9, preventative measures, number 10, from customer due diligence. Customer due diligence runs recommendation 10 straight to 24. All of those fall under customer due diligence. So the bulk of the recommendations focuses on due diligence. Once you would have collected that KYC, ensuring that it makes sense, that you verify it, that these are not fake documents. Okay, and you see PEPs fall under that, correspondent banking, new technologies, all of that falls under customer due diligence. Okay, and so that's the 40 recommendations. And so the book talks about the FATF, and their objective is to understand, the objective of this chapter is to understand the international players who work together to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, and examine some of the initiatives of these international players. Okay, so the Financial Action Task Force was established in 1989. It's an intergovernmental body whose purpose is to establish international standards and develop and promote policies, both national and internationally, to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. The FATF Secretariat is housed in the Office of the Organization for Economic Development, which is the OECD in Paris. The FATF meets several times per year and brings together legal, financial, and law enforcement experts from over 30 countries. Its mandate is reviewed every 5 years, and the latest being for 8 years until 2020. The FATF assesses implementation and effectiveness of systems designed to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. A very popular question on the exam asks, what are the tasks of the FATF? And their tasks include setting international standards, monitoring compliance with the standards, encouraging compliance of non-FAT members with the FATF standards, and studies, methods, and trends of money laundering and terrorist financing. So our sister country, Turks and Caicos, is one of the countries considered, very high risk and blacklisted because they don't even have a central bank. Okay, and so they have not implemented the risk framework and these 40 recommendations. So they're on the blacklist along with Afghanistan and Kuwait and some other countries. So if you visit the FATF site, you would see that there are particular countries that have very high risk and are blacklisted. Yes?
But isn't the Turks and Caicos situation was kind of unique? I mean, they are British territory, or I don't know if they use the word colony anymore, but they're British territory. So I mean, on what grounds are they? On what grounds are they not putting these things in place?
Again, okay, let me just tell you again. The UK has to maintain its reputation. Remember when I said all of us, I don't know if it was this class, all of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others.
Right.
So if the UK have to do any dirt, where you think they will do it?
Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's beneficial for them.
So there's no reason why they can't implement the framework. They just haven't implemented it because they wanna, do their undercover business through there.
Yeah,
and
like
then they also use Cayman.
Right.
Cayman has everything established, and normally when new laws come out, like all this new technology, Cayman is in the forefront. In fact, a lot of times when we copy laws, we look at Cayman, we look at Luxembourg, and we look at the Netherlands, and we copy their law, right? But there's no reason why except that they want it that way.
I understand.
Yeah. So this could apply to everybody else except them. It's strategic. Okay. So the Bahamas, like I said, is a part of the CFATF, and of course we know over the course of the years we've been blacklisted a few times. Every time we get blacklisted, it's because we didn't do something, or we didn't put a law in place, or we put the framework in. But of course, if you hired, well, it used to be Wayne Monroe and the SEAL, they could win on a technicality. And so we also felt that, they were beating us with their own stick. So they were measuring us against the UK and perhaps against, because, there's a European Union that makes up about 16 countries, which include like Germany and France and the Netherlands. 16 other countries, and then there's the USA, and of course we know where the size of the US or the UK or have the funding. And so over the years, we tried to implement the 40 recommendations. And so in 2017, we had a mutual evaluation report, and it was found that we were deficient in 22 of these 40 recommendations. So it wasn't only the Bahamas, Switzerland were deficient, France, a lot of other places or countries were deficient because regulation is expensive. And I think I told you all the story where the US spent $18 million to put in a system in their IRS for FACA, which is the, you know, their tax regime. So of course, the Bahamas didn't have $18 million to invest into one system in the IRS. So just to give you an idea of what it costs, you know, to put these laws in place. And not only that, a lot of banks and trust companies closed up because they simply could not afford to develop a compliance department to hire persons, pay for training, pay for systems to support all what needed to be done to follow these recommendations. Okay, are we following so far?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Are we good so far? Okay, good. Okay, so over the years, we've been blacklisted a few times. Like I said, we put in the shell so we wouldn't wipe out our financial services sector. Okay, and so for many years, you know, both governments felt that, you know, they were being hard at us, on us, and no matter what we put in place, every time we put a new law in place, they would come with some more laws. And so we felt that we were the competition. And at one point, Peter Turnquest, when he was the Minister of Finance, he had lashed out at them because they had wrongfully blacklisted us when we had put our tax laws in place and said that we didn't meet the deadline, when we indeed did meet the deadline. And so what they realized over the years is that if you don't have a seat at the table, nobody really makes a decision on behalf of your country. Nobody cares. Everybody's fighting for their country. And what they found was that, you know, the same persons who were, you know, presidents or prime ministers in countries were the same persons who were sitting on these international boards. So you have the president of France sitting on the CFATF board or other, you know, country boards. And so, of course, he made decisions based on what was good for France or Germany. Or could you all mute your mics, please, because I'm getting some feedback. Mute your mics until you speak, please. Thank you. Right, and so what we found that is that if we don't have a seat at the table, we don't make any decisions and our country gets, you know, left behind. And so Carl Bethel is now the president of the CFATF. So before the Bahamas ever gets blacklisted again, of course, he will not sign off on that. He will make sure that, you know, it's not an error and that we don't suffer any reputational risks. Okay. And so guys, like I said, I don't know if I told you, know, I teach this so many times, but I always say, yeah, our country needs you. We have the same players in the government for the last 100 years. We need some fresh ideas and, you know, to get rid of all this corruption and blocking up of the systems. We need persons to go international. Okay. So kudos to the Carl Bethel for taking this international position and applying for it and being successful. Then we have, I think it's Kevin Major. She is the president of the UN. And so they are in those positions that when these countries vote to say blacklist the Bahamas or put a sanction against the Bahamas, they would at least know about it before it happens, and you know, we could do some damage control or prevent it. Okay, so please think globally, because on the global stage we need some representation. I think there's one other person out there as well who sits on one of those international boards. And like I say, if you want to make decisions that are, you know, best for your country, you need to be in the forefront or be, you know, on the board, be the decision maker, or you will get left behind. Okay, so that's the FATF. And then there's the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. We should have heard of it many times. And The IMF was established in 1945 as a specialized agency of the United Nations within the framework of the Bretton Woods Accord. The IMF was designed to avoid a reoccurrence of the problem of the Great Depression. Today, the IMF serves to stabilize the international monetary system and acts as a monitor of the world's currencies. Okay, and normally, like I said, we are in a fight of our life with these international regulators, with these, because it's not only the 40 recommendations, the Wolfberg Group is established as well, and they deal with correspondent banking. And so they are the 8 largest banks around the world, which are the Wells Fargo, the Chase Bank, the Deutsche Bank, and they have the currency, you know, the correspondent bank system, and they have a bunch of policies that you have to implement and put in place. Then there's the Basel Committee. There are many rules and regulations that you have to follow as well with the Basel Committee. So we've, like I said, been in the fight of our lives trying to live up to their standards and implement them into law in the Bahamas. However, in 2018, the IMF, when they came in to, I guess, wrap up our financial sector assessment program, they recommended that our disaster relief plan be updated. And so successive governments had felt like, you know, we used to pay $900,000 for a insurance, disaster relief insurance, and we were not able to, you know, claim on it. So one year we had Hurricane Joaquin, and they said that there was insufficient rain. And then we had Hurricane Matthew, and they said it was insufficient. It was in a category 5. And so the government felt at that time, what is the probability of us having excessive rain and a category 5? This $900,000 can be allocated in the budget elsewhere. We don't need to pay this insurance. So when the IMF came in, you know, they said, how can you stop paying the insurance? And we said, well, this is why. And they said, well, we need you to put a plan in place for disaster relief. Okay, so luckily, in that same year, we put a plan in place. So in 2019, we put a plan in place. The government said there are about 8 issues that you would have identified in your audit that are outstanding for the Bahamas. We don't want any repercussions. We don't want to be blacklisted. So let's see what we can satisfy right away. So what we'll do is we'll put our disaster relief plan in place right away. And so what they did is they paid the $900,000 insurance, even though the opposition at that time said it was a waste of money. They then allocated 50% of the dormant funds. And at that time, we had $88 million in dormant funds at the central bank. Now, the central bank had to change the law to be able to keep those dormant funds, because what the law had stated is that banks or trust companies, whomever collected deposits, would keep the money for 7 years. And if there was no contact with their customers, after 7 years, they would send it to the central bank. The central bank just kept it forever. And then it added up to the sum of $88 million. So every February 28th, you have to send your, what you call it, unclaimed funds or dormant funds to the central bank. And so this is how it has added up to this amount. And so we changed the law, and the law now states that, I think, yeah, of course, it's still 7 years. The institution will keep the money. Then the central bank will keep it for 3 years. And so after 10 years, that money now belongs to the government. You cannot come back and reclaim your money and say, you know, I just didn't want it. Because actually, whilst I worked at Royal, I had a woman who said, you know, her husband had, her father had left her some money. Her husband treated her very poorly, and she left the money in the account. And she used to see my calls, but she never answered. And she said, now her husband is dead, and so she wanted to reclaim her money. And I was thinking it was about $2 million. And I said, ma'am, were you just going to, you know, if you had died before him, what would you have done? And she said, well, the government could have had the money rather than him. But he died. And so she came back, and I think we had kept it for 7 years. And at that time, Central Bank had already had it for 5. So that was like 12 years in total. And we were able to reclaim that money back from Central Bank, verify that it was her, and give her that money back. However, that's all changed now. And so the plan is they paid the 900,000 insurance. This is another popular question on the exam. They paid the 900,000 insurance. They allocated half of the dormant fund, so it was 88 million. So 44 million was allocated, and then they got a line of credit from the IDB. Okay, and all of this was early 2019 they put in place, and so the IMF was satisfied, and so they checked this off the list. Okay, we feel that the Bahamas has put a plan in place that in the event they have a major disaster, you know, these 3 things can go into effect. Can anybody tell me why that would have been important in 2019? And we should be thankful to the IMF for insisting.
Hurricane Dorian.
Correct, correct. So even though it wasn't enough for the magnitude, for the first time in 82 years, we had a Hurricane 5, a Category 5, sorry, and we had excessive rain. So the insurance paid, we got the 44 million and was able to, you know, at least put some money back into the economies of Abaco and, you know, to rebuild. Okay, so that's why we are very thankful to the IMF. Normally, they're the big bad regulators who always want to blacklist us. Okay, and no matter what law we put in place, they come up with something else. But this time, we saw how beneficial these laws can possibly be. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, someone else, and our hand is up before mine.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you remember, some time back where there was an issue with this case, where they keep saying that the government stole the money. I think the guy his name was a Mr. Roll or somebody, that he left all this money and the government stole it and no one could, the family members were trying to get the money. Oh, I cannot remember it. I don't know, but I listened to what
I remember that case. I remember.
It's a serious case where they keep saying the central bank is aware and the central bank have the money and it's some millions of dollars. And I was wondering, how is it that this case so exists, but no one can actually show any proof? Or is it true that they just hiding the funds?
Well, they don't hide it. What happens is, okay, you would have gone to Scotiabank, open an account, and then Mr. Roll died. Now, all I would have known is Scotiabank probably was not advised that Mr. Roll died and kept the money trying to reach out to Mr. Roll for the 7 years. Of course, there's customer confidentiality. So if you would answer the phone, Clavia, we cannot tell you we are Scotiabank and he have all this money on the account. You know, he should have left a will or some authorization for you to come and get information. But if he didn't, after 7 years, the law says you shall send that money to the central bank. And so the central bank keeps it. Now, and if you can provide a will that the money belongs to you, or information that, you know, you could go probate, even if he died intestate, you probate his will, and after 10 months, they give you authorization of who the money should go to. You take that down to Scotiabank. Scotiabank fills out central bank's form and says, we have a will. This now belongs to Clavia, and they send the money on. That's how it works. Okay, so don't always mind the noise in the market. If they had the proper documentation, they would have gotten that money.
I have a question. So, well, not really a question, but was he an employee there, or he just had money in that account?
I don't know of the case. I don't know.
Because if he's an employee, because I know someone else who's going through something like this, shouldn't it be when you apply for a job, shouldn't there be something on your application or something done where there's a beneficiary in the event of death?
When you apply for a job in the
when you get the job and your contract and all that stuff, because
yeah, but your insurance asks for a beneficiary.
I'm not talking about insurance, even in terms of your last payment from an employee, from your job.
No, it's whatever your will says.
Okay, and
What
what
your
is
insurance asks? Your insurance asks for beneficiary.
No,
Your
I'm
job
not talking-
doesn't ask for that.
I'm not referring-
Some companies ask, our company, you have to
Right,
complete.
because I'm not
form to
referring to
get your
insurance
last
money.
salary.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about, your salary, your final salary. I'm not
Or
talking about
any
your insurance.
benefits at the company, any vacation money
Yes,
funds that would be
yes.
allocated to you. They
Yes,
ask you for a beneficiary. If
that's
it's
what I'm talking
a
about.
mother, a child, you
Somebody.
have to
They
list
only
somebody.
ask that through insurance. They don't ask that for I mean, I am not aware of companies asking
They
that.
should though, Ms. Bullet.
Only where they offer you insurance.
They should though.
Yeah,
Whether
they
you have
should.
insurance or not, even if they, whatever
Yeah, but
amount is, they
if they
should.
don't want to get involved in trying to retain that information, you should have a will. That's what the proper thing is for you to have a
That's,
will.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
so don't put that response, that's administrative, you know, to put that on the company. That's why companies don't ask. Now, insurance companies ask on behalf of the insurance company, and again, they do the administration. Because
Okay, so
whoever
what
your
about-
pension should go to is the same thing, you know, that's administrative.
So what about an employer who they don't offer insurance, they don't offer benefits?
They don't, why would they ask? Why would they ask?
I mean, I don't know, I guess if something happened, I mean,
No,
I don't know.
but
but these
that's, no, Marvin, that's too administrative. Now, you go and you bring the will, and whoever has the will, then you get that, but you can't, I mean, to keep a copy of these people and their IDs and all, that's a job. Sorry, that's a job. Renita, go ahead.
My question was, does the 7 years apply with insurance companies as well? Like, say my mother would have passed some years ago. Nobody knew if she had a insurance policy. Are you able to like go to the company and ask, did she have something? Like, is that something after 7 years? Does it go to central bank as well? How does that work for the insurance
No,
companies?
because the insurance companies are thieves. I'm sorry to say, for all the employees who work in insurance, they're thieves. They happy you don't know. They happy you don't know, and they don't tell nobody, and they don't send money anywhere. It's only for deposit accounts. Okay, so they don't pay.
I only know them
pay it,
to notify if there's a beneficiary. They'll try to reach out to that beneficiary. If they can't get that, that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's it. You all lose that. Yeah. So it's best that you go there and you inquire. And then if they do see the name in the system, they tell you, will bring your letters of administration or probate the will and bring it back to them. Okay. Or if, you know, they do pay if there is a will, and they do pay for the funeral expense. You know, because the will takes 10 months, so they'll give you enough money to cover the funeral. Yeah, okay, good.
Probate takes 10 months, Ms. Bullet?
Used to probably 2 years now,
That's
but
correct.
minimum 10 months.
Yeah.
Just the Bahamas. Just the Bahamas. Yeah, and the thing about it is, if you work in the offshore world, and your customer is from a civil law jurisdiction, in like France and Germany, which are civil law, they have heir certificate where I could just fill out the certificate and say, Patrick is the heir to my you know, assets or whatever. And so because they do that in civil law, common law jurisdictions don't uphold that. So what you do is you probate that in France, and then you have to go and probate this again in the Bahamas. Okay, so if you work in the offshore, that's how it works. If that person is from a civil law jurisdiction, 2 probates. So hopefully France will be 6 months and Bahamas will be 10, you know, 10 or 2 years. Go ahead, Doniqua.
So I have a question as it relates to the 3 years that the funds are now sitting in central bank instead of with no time. Right. So who now decides what's going to happen with those unclaimed funds? Is it the government or central bank?
Yeah, the government. So they changed the law to say that the money now belongs to the country.
And so they decide wherever they want to allocate those funds.
No,
they can
they have I guess they have an automated system now. When it hits the time frame, it's gone.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they put it in the consolidated fund.
Say goodbye.
Yeah, say goodbye. Don't come, but you was waiting for your husband to dead. Yeah, no more of that. No more of that. If you make it before the 10 years, then yeah, but after that, then it's the government owned. Okay, so again, just an overview on the international regulators. I told you all the very popular questions on the exams, the task, as well as what did the IMF do, you know, in 2019. So make sure that you understand, you know, who the international regulators are and the 40 recommendations. Okay. Any
Again,
questions?
Ms. Bullet, you say what did the IMF do in 2018? I'm saying the recommendations.
And the 40 recommendation, familiar, not that you have to know them, but you know, to be able to refer to them.
Okay.
Miss Bullard, I'll just get my pen back again. You could go and repeat the 2019 IMF information for me, please. I just want to make another note of it.
The three things that the Bahamas put in place?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so they paid the $900,000 insurance. They allocated 50% of the dormant funds, so $44 million. And they established a line of credit at the IDB. In the event a disaster happens, it kicks right in.
Okay, thank you.
What was the
Okay.
last one? The last thing you said.
They established a line of credit with the IDB.
Okay, thank you.
What is it, the International Development Bank?
I think that was negotiated on the good grace of Mr. Butler, who we have there.
Yes.
And those are the three things that the IMF made the Bahamas do, right?
No, that's what the Bahamas did. They just made them put a plan in place. So normally they come in, they do an audit and they say, we realize that there's no that disaster relief plan. You have 30 days to put one in place or we find you. And so that was the three things the Bahamas came up with. And they said, okay, we are satisfied that should you have a disaster, that would be sufficient to cover, you know, any disasters that you may, you know, or enough to get you back on your feet till you get real help. Okay, Doniqua, go ahead.
So question, so since we had Hurricane Dorian and obviously we needed the 900,000 for the insurance, were we able to, I guess, pay that 900,000 again? Or did we go ahead and do that again, seeing as though we actually had a disaster of such magnitude that would have required us to use those funds?
Right, so every year, so we got 14 million for excessive rain and I think 12 million for category 5, something like that. So yeah, that 900,000 would have been due again in 2020 and then 2021 and then 2022. And I am almost certain after Hurricane Dorian, they made that a priority to pay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now remember, I'm not certain if it was you, this group that I told y'all, when Hurricane Maria happened in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a US outlying island. Donald Trump did not support them. They didn't have electricity and for many days. They didn't have water for many days. And so the international regulators saw the mayor as being desperate and felt that the mayor would corrupt herself in order to get money to fix this country back. And so Puerto Rico saw their corruption perception index drop from 65 all the way to 0. Like they didn't even have a rating. And so when we wanted to send wires and do business with Puerto Rico, it was very difficult at that time because we just simply didn't, it was like questionable and you had to get like senior approval if you were doing business with with Puerto Rico, because normally correspondent banks say we do not do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. So if Puerto Rico was 65 one day, Hurricane Maria happened, and now there's no rating at all, that means it's 0. They don't accept any transfers going in or out. So that was a very difficult time for Puerto Rico. So it does not have to be like a money laundering scheme or Russia with the war or all these different things. It could be an act of nature or a different possible event that would cause, you know what I mean, your country to get a high risk rating or a lowest corruption perception index.
Did we come close to that?
We came close to that. We were watching, yeah, with Dorian, because, you know, people laughed at Menace when he was at, you know, he had all sorts of programs and was asking for donations. And I think one time he went down to the Bahamas and he had announced that he had raised the money. And there were 1 or 2 persons saying, oh, who are these people that he raised this money from? But you know, you have to do whatever possible. The people in Abaco and Freeport were screaming, they was living in the gyms. And so, you know, you needed to do something to get them back to a livable space. And here it is, people were mocking the prime minister for trying to do his best while remaining uncorrupt. You know, because I sure some drug dealers would step up and say, man, take this money, Menace. Let this terrorism, let this drug run come through and just put some, you know, money into the economy. So you have to be very, very careful. And there are billionaires out there who would say, listen, I can give your country this $1 billion, but I need to set up my shop there. Right?
Ms. Bullitt.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. What's the name of the entity that creates the CPIs again? That rates the countries again? What's the name?
So Transparency International is a country rating as well as the CPI index. Did we look at, was it this class? Did we look at it last week when we talked about? No, we didn't. Okay. So normally we cover that in I guess what's the next section? Intermediate. We'll go more into depth there, but I could just show you how it looks. Again, just for a visual. Allow, okay, so it just, it tells you, you know, who is ranked the least corrupt in the world. And I guess is Denmark. Anything over 45 is good. Anything under 45 is considered high risk. And so let's scroll down. You see the Bahamas, we are at 64. When we get under 45, you see Jamaica, that means they are considered corrupt. Their governments are considered corrupt. Okay, you see China right there, because they don't want to upset China. You see what I mean? Have 45. Government considers a communist country, so yeah. And see everybody under 45. All these are considered corrupt governments. And again, the president of Brazil has been impeached before, not the current one, but the past one has been impeached. So that was your president is impeached. Then if your MP is going to jail or not going to jail and they blatant, then your country is considered corrupt. And so corresponding banks, the world.
Where are you on this list?
Sorry? But yeah, we 60, see Bahamas.
Yes.
Where are we? Right here, 64, so we good.
So Ms. Bullitt, on one of those things, the dirty money, there was a country, Malaysia. Where's Malaysia on this list?
Let's see.
Because the president of Malaysia invested a lot of them, oh, they're at 48, invested a lot of the country's money in a company that's supposed to be drilling for oil, but the company was not drilling for oil. And so that was like a big thing. So of course, like they raided his house the day after he lost the election, and they took millions of dollars of cash and jewelry and handbags and all kinds of stuff out of his house. So there's a case against him now, I guess, that's still pending. But they're actually trying to put him back in power.
Well, if he gets back in power, you will see this drop. Because there's a case against him and he can possibly lose, that's why it's still, borderline 45. But if he goes back in power, it will be completely corrupt. Just like Ukraine, the last president of Ukraine used to be 18 or something like that, 20 something. But when the new president came in, it increased because, he satisfied all the international standards. Like I said, one day I had, 1 week I had processed wires to Russia and Madagascar and Kuwait. The next week, my correspondent bank said, we don't do business with countries that has a CPI index less than 30. So everybody, 29, Angola, Liberia, all these, see Russia 29. So they did not allow me to pay those salaries in Russia that next week. So they had to close out that account. Okay, so you want to be, you have to know the principles of the Wurzburg group as well. Okay, we have a very heavy Venezuelan book, but you can't wire any money in and out of Venezuela. So obviously they doing a workaround. You can't even wire money if they say, I live in Venezuela, or I have a Venezuelan passport and I live in Spain. Once Venezuela shows up in the SWIFT system, it's blocked.
Ms. Bullet, but isn't the US in talks with Venezuela right now to probably release some of those sanctions so they could get some oil?
Well, I guess now that the Democrats are in, they definitely wasn't gonna talk to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Venezuela is the oil capital of the world. And so Donald Trump had sent somebody down there to say, this who should be your president. But the people did not vote for him. And so, they may be talking to Biden, but they wouldn't talk to the Republicans.
I have one more. Sorry, Ms. Bullet.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was looking at the CFATF and who the members are, right? Because in the book it says 20, but I think it's now 24.
I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. In chapter 3, the CFATF, it talked about how many members it has now. It's 24 members now, even though the book says 20. But
yeah, but this book is from 2018. So
I understand. Yeah, I understand. So the stats, I guess, well, it's up to us to do it. But
yeah, do the research to get the updated.
Correct.
That's why I said, look at
Correct.
the dates. It's 2022 now. Look at the dates.
Right. But the point I was making is that Venezuela, they say that this is a Caribbean basin, Central and South America. It comprises of those member jurisdictions, right? But when you actually go and look at who they are, the only South American entities is Venezuela and then Aruba, and that's it. And then it's the regular 22 Caribbean nations that include, Suriname, as far as Bermuda, all the way down to maybe Trinidad and Suriname, and as far west as Cayman, Jamaica, and so on. So it includes, but it's interesting that Venezuela is the only one, and then Aruba.
That's what?
Are members of the CFATF.
I don't understand what you're saying. You said it's interesting that they are?
Okay, when you look on this website, well, first of all, Venezuela is known to be corrupt. It has a rating
No. The US say Venezuela is corrupt. right?
Right.
Are they truly corrupt?
Not just the US though. I mean, well,
no. You see, there's always, all these wars are always about what? Oil. Venezuela is the oil capital of the world. And until the US says that they have somebody running Venezuela where they could get this oil, they will always be corrupt.
Right. But not just the US. I mean, talking to people in Trinidad, which is right next door, there appears to be, it is said that there is a lot of corruption there.
Well, there has been a lot of sanctions, and so should they have truly been?
I understand what you're saying.
Rightfully sanctioned. That's the first thing.
Right. Like the US contributed to the collapsing of their economy.
Correct, of the economy.
Yes, I understand. And because human nature, if you have to survive, sometimes I guess, I've never been there, but even persons in Abaco said to eat, they had to break into stores, and so that's a crime, right? So so sometimes your human condition causes you to do corrupt things. But I was saying with this Caribbean CFATF, what is interesting to me is that of all the South American countries, that only Venezuela and Aruba are members.
Because they were trying to be compliant. Okay, let's look at Saddam Hussein in Iraq. I think it was Iraq. You know, when George Bush was president, he kept talking about these weapons of mass destruction, right? And as you see in the book, it just talks about ML and TF, and of course we know is now PF, proliferation financing as well, right? And so he insisted there was these weapons of mass destruction, and they had to get Saddam Hussein. Now, if any of us was born back in the 80s, we would know that his father lost the government over fighting the war in the Gulf, and it was considered that, so you know, he had lost, so he had a bad reputation. Right. So here it is, 20 years later, I now need to revenge Saddam for my father. Right. And so now, instead of, again, it's an oil fight again, and Iraq had loads of oil, and they did a documentary on Iraq where they said that the economy of Iraq was booming. They had a lot of investors. Everybody was eating. They were about to give each citizen a stipend, but then George Bush Jr. came in and they bombed Iraq and they destroyed. So imagine somebody coming in and bombing downtown, blowing up Royal Bank, blowing up the Scotia Banks. You know, they would exit right away, correct? Yep. Okay, and so this is what happened to Iraq. And then our trade stopped and all the major banks left and the economy decreased. And then they went on this all-out war for Saddam, saying that there was weapons of mass destruction, to find out there was none.
It's a lie.
Right? Then they got the UK to join in with them. And then when Tony Blair, who was the UK president at the time, came on TV and said, one day I hope to go to heaven. And so I must admit there was no need for us to kill Saddam. Right. And I am sorry. Right? So Iraq was very corrupt, right? Doing that whole time, right?
I see.
So I feel like, you know, that's what happened with Venezuela, right? And every time the Republicans come in, it's going to get worse. And then when the Democrats win, they'll get a little better. Because when Obama left office, he lifted all these sanctions off of Cuba. Right. And then Donald Trump came and put them right back in place, right? So before sanctions, never, you know, they had in the sanction from 1980 and it never moved. But with presidents who are very volatile like Donald Trump, then talking to the dictators, you know, it's a different story. So you have to pay attention now. Claudia, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, remember that, I mean, it's sad to say it, but the US always has an ulterior motive. If you went on the same wavelength as them, they consider you an enemy and not an ally. You know, I'm referring back to what you were saying with Iraq, you know, the insurgents they were looking for were normal people like you and I going about their day-to-day business, just living normal life, including kids, women, and men who didn't have anything. They didn't know nothing about guns and bombing, nothing, and these infiltrates that they assumed that was happening. But remember, there were 7 countries that the U.S. was trying to get a hold of, and one of them being Ukraine. And so, like I always tell people, sometimes we have to sit back and do a little research and see where, because this, like the situation what's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine is stemming from, okay, Russia say you want to join and be allies and whatever with the US. When they were trying to take over you, we can't have that. So you know what, we can start the wars to deal with you because you're working against us when you were at one point in time a part of us. So like there were like I say, 7 different countries, Iraq being one of them, and they were like they're rich in certain things that the U.S. want, and they see them as a weak spot, and they just want to, you know, let's get in there and let's do what we need to do and just take over.
Correct. Well, Putin, you know, different from the U.S. because again, he gave independence to the what made up the USSR. He gave independence. He didn't want to develop them. They developed themselves, and now he sees again he has an oil shortage. He already spent up all his money. The largest producers are some oxide, nitric oxide. Largest producers are corn, and so therefore now he wants to take them back.
Wants them back.
Give them independence. It's all about money and greed, and the end of it all. And a lot of people die, and innocent people suffer, and they don't care. Okay, but every time, like you say, do a little research and always look at who wrote the article, because if you watch, like I say, Fox News versus CNN, CNN supports the Democrats, Fox News supports the Republicans. Then there's an OAN channel who has to be owned by Donald Trump, because all they do is glorify Donald Trump all day long. And so you have to have like discernment and read a little bit of who the author is, and you will find out exactly if this the truth or half of the truth, or you know, the three sides of the story. So always know from which point of view the author would have written, you know, an article. Then you'll know if it's the truth or not. Okay, good, very good intellectual conversation. I am pleased with the level of intelligence. So very good. Okay, so we understand a little bit about the international regulators, chapter 3. Any questions? Or we can go on to chapter 4. Okay, so we'll go on to chapter 4. And again, if something else comes out, feel free to ask. We could always go back. Okay, and so again, like we said, they were the international regulators, and then the Bahamas had to put laws in place. And of course, we used the staggered approach because it would have wiped out our financial services system back in 2000. So we put a little bit of law here and a little bit of law there. Some technicalities were won over the years. We didn't put the full framework in place. However, after the CFATF came in 2017, we repealed and we replaced all our laws and we put the meat in place. So the framework, the anti-money laundering framework, comprises of 7 or 8 different legislation. It's the Proceeds of Crime Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act 218. And again, like I said, if you're doing research, don't pull up the 2001 or 2002 version, because a lot of them were repealed and replaced to put the meat in. And then there's the Financial Transaction Reporting Act 218. The Financial Intelligence Act was just amended, so that's still 2000. Then the Financial Intelligence Transaction Reporting Regulation 2001, and the Traveler's Currency Declaration Act 215. These laws outline the crime of money laundering and the underlying criminal offense. They outline terrorism financing. They create requirements that reporting entities must follow. They name law enforcement like the FIU and the government bodies that will have access to the reports received about suspicious matters related to money laundering and terrorist financing. The traveler's currency declaration. Let's look at, we'll talk about the traveler's currency, but I had a copy of the FTRA up. And again, this is why lawyers say, you know, in business, there's 2 laws, but there's 125 pages, so about 75 pages each. Nobody could read it. And again, they use words that we don't even know. Instrumentality is alley, this and that, all kind of Latin terms. And so we always need a lawyer to tell us exactly what these people talking about, okay? Or what this law talking about. So of course, rather than just say criminal crimes, like we learned in chapter 1, or 21 crimes under money laundering, which are fraud, cyber crimes, theft, human trafficking, counterfeiting, we call them identified risks. So you're also looking for the law to say, what is the penalty for theft or money laundering? We don't know that the terminology is identified risk. So this is why we always need a lawyer. Okay, so again, just for a visual, this is the Proceeds of Crime Act, and this has all the penalties associated when you commit a crime. Okay.
Are you sharing the screen?
I'm not? Okay, sorry. I thought I was. Okay, that's how it looks. And all the rest of y'all sit right there and I say, for visual, and y'all can't see nothing. What's wrong with yours? Y'all got to talk back to Miss Bullet. You're very quiet tonight. Okay, so this is how it looks. And again, like I was talking about identified risk offenses, they are the counterfeiting and the terrorism and all the different crimes, the stealing by reason of employment. Okay, now if we work in the financial services sector, when we are onboarded as a new employee, there are 2 laws that we sign off on automatically, and it's failure to disclose and stepping off. These 2 are almost on every single exam. And for some reason, persons only get 1 question right. The penalty is the same, but persons always only get 1 right. So of course, failure to disclose is on page 17. So let's scroll down to page 17 and see Doniqua, who wanted to read it earlier. Doniqua, you could read this for the class. Like I said, this is always on the final exam, and you only get 1 right. Y'all please try to get the 2 right for Ms. Bullock's sake, because we have to keep repeating it. We have to keep repeating it. Okay, Doniqua, you ready to read for us?
So where am I reading from?
Number 13, failure to disclose by a nominated officer.
Okay. Failure to disclose by nominated officers. A nominated officer commits an offense if A, the nominated officer knows or suspects or has reasonable grounds for knowing or suspecting that another person is engaged in money laundering or an identified risk activity. B, any information or other matter on which the knowledge or suspicion of the nominated officer is based or which gives reasonable grounds for such knowledge or suspicion came to him in consequence of a disclosure made under section 19(1)(a). And C, he does not make the required disclosure as soon as is practicable after the information or other matter comes to him. Number 2, for the purposes of the section, a required disclosure is a disclosure of the information or other matter, A, to a focal point officer, B, in the form and manner, if any, prescribed for by the Financial Intelligence Unit. Number 3, a person does not commit an offense under this section if he has a reasonable excuse for not disclosing the information or the other matter.
Okay, so again, they could have just said the compliance officer or a person who works in the financial services sector or anywhere, I guess, but they use, again, terminology, nominated officer, focal point officer, okay? We want to go on. So when, like I said, when you are onboarded to a new institution, you automatically sign off that you understand that you cannot fail to disclose, okay? Now, persons, again, this is how you went on a technicality. You could stand up in court and say, as soon as it was practicable means I was busy for the last 3 months, and now it's just practicable for me to report this. But y'all happened to lock me up before I was gonna report it, you know, so that's crazy that they even have that in there. And then if you have a reasonable excuse, what would be the reasonable excuse? Is somebody trying to kill me? I don't know. Okay, so that is so, and this is what the international regulators look at as, you put foolishness in the law, man. You know what I mean? You trying to help these people get off of the, you know, offense after they commit it. Okay, so that's failure to disclose. Go on to 14, tipping off.
Okay. Tipping off. A person commits an offense if A, he knows or suspects that any disclosure under this part has been made or an action has been taken by the Financial Intelligence Unit in relation to anything under this part, and B, he makes a disclosure to another person which is likely to prejudice any investigation which might be conducted following the disclosure referred to in paragraphs A, what that is, section 1 or A2.
Right. Okay, and then it goes down to tell you what the penalties are. So they say a person who commits an offense under section 9011 is liable. This is in section 9011. This is section 13 to 14, okay? Then it says a person who commits an offense under section 12 to 14 is liable. So we want to read this. Go ahead.
A person who commits an offense under sections 12 to 14 is liable on summary conviction to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 years or to a fine not exceeding $500,000 or to both. Or B, on conviction on indictment to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 22 years or to a fine or to both. Sorry, 20 years or to a fine or to both.
Okay. So this is the Proceeds of Crime Act, and all of us that work in the financial services sector, we cannot fail to disclose and we cannot tip off, okay? And of course they had to update the law. This was always in the law. However, they updated it because a lot of persons feel like, oh, this is above my pay grade, or nobody's protect you at the you know, at the court. When you walk out of court, the accused right there could kidnap you, kill you, whatever. There's no protection. And so I don't have nothing to say, right? But we are the gatekeepers. And in fact, in my next class, the topic is human trafficking, because I have somebody who works at one of the casinos. It's on a Bahama or Atlantis. And they say, Ms. Bullard, you know, we have these major, I work in the VIP section where we have these major poker games. And in the nights, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when the poker game starts, there are these ladies that come in and they are not coherent. And so I give them drinks and the men are engaged in their poker games, but they sit there like they are in a daze or, you know, incoherent. And he say, you know, it's very scary. So what should he do as one of the gatekeepers? Remember, compliance is everybody's business.
He should report that.
Right.
Even if he goes to security first.
Right.
And also if it's at the casino, gaming board is present 24 hours a day. So if you can, if the security isn't doing anything about it, you should report it to gaming board. They're there.
Right.
And so everybody in the casino knows who's gaming board.
Right. And then they have so many cameras.
Right.
Or and if you don't, when you fill out this suspicious transaction form, you don't even have to put your name on it. You could drop it under compliance door in a suggestion box and say, please come down here at 3 a.m. and check to make sure that these girls are not being, you know, results of human trafficking. But, you know, he said, oh, that's above my pay grade and I need my job and I don't want no these millionaires who and they're gambling. You know, but we all have to do
Speaking from the regulator standpoint, because I'm with the board. I worked in the casino for a while, and most of the times the employees, if they see something untoward, they would come and whisper, well, you know, I hear or I see this. I don't know if they tell y'all or I don't know if y'all know, But they would, most of the time, so the hotel staff would come and say, well, oh, we see this, you need to look into this, or check this out, most cases. And then it would be up to you to do your due diligence to make sure what they say
Right.
check out or don't check out.
Right, so the compliance officer would do an investigation and then fill out the STR form and send it. So there should be an internal STR form that you could complete. You send that on to compliance, they do the investigation, and then they send it on to the FIU, where the police is who do the investigation. And, you know, so you don't even have to put your name on it. But again, compliance is everybody's business, and people are getting away with human trafficking because everybody's afraid to speak up and everybody's afraid to be victimized, and everybody only have a 9 to 5. And so when these people say turn a blind eye or you getting fired, we turn in a blind eye because we don't have a second revenue stream. Okay, so work on that. Go ahead, Andrea, you wanted to say something? Andrea Joseph? No? Okay. Okay, so be sure that you understand your responsibility. You cannot fail to disclose. You also cannot tip off. You cannot say, boy, Miss Bullet, they coming to check you, check out these girls who will be with you while you playing poker. I just letting you know they watching you, you know, you cannot tip off. Okay, so be very, very careful of that. Okay, so again, just a visual of what the law looks like and how difficult it is sometimes to decipher what exactly they mean, who these focal point people is, who they talking about, rather than just say compliance. So I guess they didn't want them to win on that technicality, so they use, you know, that verbiage to include everybody. Okay. The Traveler's Currency Declaration Act, 215. I don't know if persons are aware, but when you were traveling to the USA, the law stated that if you had $10,000 or more, you would need to declare that you had this $10,000 or you would be arrested. Now, for the life of me, I don't know why in this day and time where robbery is so high and people killing you left, right, and center, persons are walking around with $10,000, but some people do it. But why in God's earth, why can't you declare? Why can't you would not go to jail? It's not against the law to have $10,000, but you must declare. So what happened was my very good doctor, God rest her soul, she has passed away now. She was going to Jamaica and she had $220,000 in cash in her suitcase, trying to get back to Jamaica. So anyway, it went through the little machine, and of course, it started to beep off, and they opened it and saw this large amount of cash, told her that she didn't declare it, and then they arrested her. However, on the domestic side of the airport, or coming or going from Bahamas before 2018, it was US law that you had declared, was not Bahamian law. And so they arrested her in error. And so she was let go, and a lot of people cried out because her husband used to be political, that, you know, they turned a blind eye, but no, it was not Bahamian law. And she was not going on a US flight. She was going on Air Jamaica. So that was allowed. Okay, so of course, again, international standards saw that as a glitch in the law. And so they amended the law to say it's not only when you're going to the US, it's also when you're going to leaving from to or from the Bahamas. Clavia, you want to say something?
So we all know when the US citizens come here, they gambling, and a lot of times they don't. You'll be surprised to know how many people do not declare how much they have on them at the airport and what goes unnoticed. But a lot of times they don't declare because they don't want to pay Uncle Sam anything. So it's to them, okay, it's cash. So if I declare it, that's gonna go on, and I have to, you know, it's gonna go on their record or whatever they do in the US. And so it'll be said that, oh, he won this certain amount of cash playing poker in the Bahamas. So when he does his taxes, that should show up on his tax report.
Okay,
If you carry cash, they don't know you have this money.
Oh, okay,
So
I understand now.
you don't need to let them know. So this is what a lot of them tend to do. And then for them, they end up spending more than the 10 grand they win. And then they should have just declared.
Okay, but Clavia, the casinos have to be working along with them because last year or the year before, some guys were here from Canada for spring break. And of course, I think you can catch Air Canada on the domestic side as well. They won $30,000 in the casino and they did not declare, and they were found out and they were prosecuted. And so then somebody else won $50,000 and they didn't declare.
The casino does notify the correct authorities. And so if you walk into US Customs, and
I mean, based on what law does the casino, what did they do? Like what law says that?
I don't know.
That's confidentiality.
Yeah, but this, you know how it is in the Bahamas, you know, such thing in certain things. But there's a lot of times when, and then you have to remember, the US Customs officers do a lot of roaming during peak season. Like right now it's spring break. And they are not just stationed into the airports. They are out and about with you, mixing and mingling, and you will never know. So you don't know who's watching these big poker tournaments. You don't know who is actually an officer station as maybe a croupier. So in all of that, it just takes to be, especially at the airport. That's the quickest and the easiest place to get locked up. Just declare it and call it a day.
Yeah, that's what I say. I say just declare it and move on, you know, and it's if you're in a group, if you were the church group or whatever, I guess everybody has to find out. You know, you can't just say, well, there's 5 of us and I don't know how much money they are carrying. If you bought your tickets together, then you must ask, I guess, everybody and declare. So to make sure that nobody is arrested, okay? And you don't get into problems. So that's how that law was updated. Yeah, and like I said, my good doctor, they arrested her. She was so embarrassed. And, you know, they even tried to confiscate her money, but it was not Bahamian law at that time. It was just US law, and she was not going to the US. Okay, so it's just a little bit overview of Bahamian legal system, the laws. We see how complex they are. We know why lawyers make loads of money just to interpret, and then there are amendments to amendments to amendments. And so we have to go through all the amendments. Any questions on the laws? No? Clear as mud?
Ms. Bullitt, the laws can be obtained online. I can look at.
Yeah, so there's a Bahamas laws online, and you should just put that in, and all the laws come up in there in like alphabetical order. Or they are on the central bank website, or your regulators website, or Bahamas Financial Services Board. Normally, when there's an update, you will see if you are subscribed to any of them, they will send you an email to tell you that this is an update. Or sometimes they send out a white paper, and the white paper is, these are the proposed changes to the law. We would like some feedback from the industry. And sometimes the laws don't make sense. So that feedback helps. That feedback helps. Okay.
Just subscribe to the central bank webpage. So I guess I'll be saving some of those in short order.
Good, very good, very good. Okay, any questions or concerns? No? Okay. Okay, so that's chapters 3 and 4. Next week we'll cover chapters 5 and 6. We are already, next week will be the third week. We only have 2 weeks left, which means 1 week will be review class. And so please don't let the time pass you by with, giving your feedback in terms of the newspaper and getting your 5% and also doing your homework. Okay, because like I said, the idea is to sit into the final exam comfortably with your 30% already. Okay, and so this is, I need a reader. We just want to share, some information. This is a good article that we like to share, and so we want to read this now. There are 2 courses. There's the ICA that is UK based, and there's ACAMS that is US based. Okay, and so primarily we are common law, just like the UK, and so this ICA course is more detailed, has more information and more, in line with the UK. If you go to ACAMS, you learn a lot of US laws, and most of us, I think only Citibank is a US bank. Most of us don't work in US bank, so it's not really applicable. And then the course is not as detailed as ICA is, okay? But they do have a lot of information out there. They do offer a wide variety of trainings. And so this excerpt, this is a good one that came out of ACAMS, and they do in here tell you that they are the gold standard in AML, but they're not. Okay, I with ICA 100%. Go ahead, Jamal. You want to say something?
No, I thought I heard you say you need a reader.
Yeah. Oh, you raise your hand to read. Okay, good. Go ahead. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me just make sure it's large enough. Okay. This should also be at the back of your book. Do you have this at the back of your book?
I think so.
I don't know if it'll be case 1, 2, 3, or 4.
It's case 1.
Okay, so yeah, so read Jamal from case 1.
Okay. You just became the new money laundering officer. 5 ways to help you get started. Congratulations. You have just become a part of what is perhaps the fastest growing and hardest profession in the world. Money laundering compliance officers, MLCOs, are highly sought after professionals and quite sacred. I am certain you are already overwhelmed with both the challenges and the prospects of your new position. The following 5 ideas aim to help you embark on a fruitful and exciting journey where you can learn and at the same time prove to be a valuable asset to your organization. 1, make time to understand your business. For an MLCO to be effective, she must make the time to really learn and understand the business she is trying to protect. Writing policies, reading suspicious reports, monitoring and training become pointless if you do not understand the environment you are in and the needs of your peers at the front line. Take time to sit with them, engage in their day-to-day activities, and make inquiries in regards to the challenges they face and issues with which they need help. Ask and be prepared to listen to what they have to say. That will help you truly understand what they are doing and how you can become a valuable and necessary partner. 2, there is no shame in training. People sometimes think that when they get a dream job, they can avoid further training, mainly because they seem to have already proven that they are up to the challenge. I have news for you. This is not the case. There should be no shame in receiving training. Training should be continuous, even if you are repeating yourself. Try to find training opportunities in your area, in your town, in your country, and internationally. Choose carefully and try to find those seminars or workshops that will help you in successfully discharging your duties. Trainings can even provide you with ideas for conducting your own training for your colleagues. There are many training opportunities on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, AML, CTF, but there are also more specialized ones about the role of the MLCO and writing MLCO reports. It is important to realize and appreciate that the costs for such trainings are very small when you compare to the personal benefits you will receive, and more importantly, for your organization. 3, seek resources outside of your immediate environment. Do not concentrate just on the local legislation and the relevant regulatory guidelines or directives. Those are obviously important, but they are not enough. It is equally, if not more important, to broaden your horizons. The European AML directives apply across all of Europe, so you will find that there is more guidance out there that will help you understand your duties and how to be more effective. There's also useful guidance from US regulators, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Australia, New Zealand, and more. Just use Google search. A number of professional bodies also offer free subscription newsletters on Know Your Customer and AML, as well as general compliance and ethics matters. The MLCL role requires a lot of critical thinking and analysis, and accordingly, I would advise you to set up your own library of guidance notes, training materials, presentations, articles, and case studies. Organize these into folders and refer to them when you are uncertain about a situation or when you feel like confirming something before you make a business decision or provide advice. Also, there are some useful and current books on AML and CTF, as well as general compliance management. They can be helpful both as a tool to get you started, but also as a reference from time to time. 4, memberships to professional organizations. Nowadays, one can find quite a few professional membership organizations for AML compliance professionals. One of the best ones to subscribe to is the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS. Becoming a member of one or more of these organizations opens the doors to abundant resources and practical tools to help you perform your duties and excel in what you do. Some of these organizations also offer training opportunities, seminars, and conferences you can attend to become and stay current with what is happening in the AML world. Specifically, ACAMS offers the CAMS certification, the gold standard in AML certifications, and also organizes a number of conferences in Europe and the rest of the world. These are especially useful to anti-financial crime professionals. 5, network. Attending relevant conferences in your country or abroad is a great way to meet with your peers. Networking is very important in today's fast-paced environment. It is vital to exchange ideas, to share resources and experiences, to seek help. Many of the professional membership organizations offer local chapters or forums where members can gather and organize relevant and specialized trainings, exchange ideas on the way they do things, and even have fun together. Also, social media is very important. Use LinkedIn or even Facebook and Twitter to follow professional bodies and professional membership organizations that share important news as they happen. You can then share what you have learned with your colleagues. Your colleagues will appreciate the valuable and relevant information you provide. Contrary to popular belief, MLCOs can be an exciting, popular, and innovative person and a valuable asset to his or her colleagues and their organization. Remember to be open and welcoming and embrace the challenges and prospects of your position and be prepared to make a difference.
Okay, excellent, Jamal. Thank you very much for reading for us. Yeah, the library is very important. If you're going to go all the way to ICA, you'll find that many times you will have to refer back to both your intro and your intermediate book in order to decipher what the question is asking and how to answer it. Okay, so keep your library of all your works and keep it organized. Don't be like Ms. Bullitt, who has papers all over the place. And I say half an hour just to look through a paper where I've already done research. And so that, you know, helps cut down the amount of research that you have to do every time. It's very difficult. It sounds remedial, very difficult for persons to read. Not only is it difficult for persons to read, it's very difficult for persons to comprehend, okay? And make decisions. Another very difficulty for the humankind, okay? And that's what compliance requires. For you to be able to read and do research, for you to comprehend what you have read, and then to be able to make a good decision, okay? If you can do that, you will be successful. Again, I don't have all this information in my brain. I don't remember everything every time. When an incident comes up, I have to go and do research. I have to pick up the phone and call Jamal. Have you ever had this experience? What did you do? What is the outcome? What would you suggest? Okay, that will be the importance of your network. When I was at Royal Bank of Canada at the end of the year, my lawyer fee used to be about $50,000 or $60,000. And it was like, Ms. Bullitt, if you could cut down this lawyer fee, then you could get more bonus. So of course, you know, they said the right words, and I developed my network. And so I was able to call in favors from Patrick and from Tanishka and from Jamal and say, what are your ideas? What would you do in this situation? Have you ever had this experience? And that cut down a lot of fees. And I was able to make better decisions. You won't always make the right decision, but if you document the decision and who opposed it, who agreed to it, and why you made the decision at a particular time, all of that will help you when audit comes in. I made this decision because it was the pandemic. Normally I would do A, B, or C. You know, being organized and documenting helps, networking helps, okay? And so you don't only want to go out to these institutions and build your network to benefit you. You want to also be available when persons call and ask for help. You want to mentor somebody or give back in any way you can. Okay?
Be a resource tank.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Very good, Patrick. Okay, that's how it works. Each one reach one, and we all help each other.
Wonderful.
Okay, and then you want to, like I say, go on the global stage. You want to start within and build the country back to where it needs to be. And then there are a lot of international posts that we just don't think we qualify for or we don't apply for. But we, like I said, so far, 2 or 3 persons have gone internationally and they've been successful. Okay, and if you don't have a seat at the table, nobody even thinks about you. If there are 5 opportunities, the 5 people at the table, you get the opportunity. Then you say, oh, that's what about Patrick? No, everybody can save themselves or their country. Okay, so put yourself out there.
Well, the folks will come.
You'll be left behind. Or you'll be left behind. And then, like I said, this is a very evil world that we live in. Yeah. Right, compliance is very risky.
That's right. The folks will be on you if you don't comply.
Yes, yes. And when you try and make them comply, sometimes they like Steen, was it you that said the person that, if you blow the whistle, right, at Wells Fargo, right? You could lose your job or you could definitely be victimized. And today we live in a world where if you lie, you in the click. If you tell the truth, you're ostracized. Okay, so we want to be upright. We don't want to compromise ourselves. So we want to ensure that we have those 5 different revenue streams intact, so that, you know, when they say, Miss Bullet, we got to let you go. If you don't sign these papers, I say, well, I'll collect my rent. I'm a licensed mortician. I have a fishing boat. This is just my 9 to 5. I don't have to compromise myself. Okay. So be well versed, and like I say, those same group of people that you hang out with one weekend is how do we invest? Let's come together. Who has the best interest rates? Can we be like the Chinese and live off for 20% and save 80% 1 week out of the month? 1 week. Can we cut back? Can we network and get rid of this black crab syndrome? Because if we look in our country, the Africans are doing well, so are the Chinese, so are the Haitians. And we mad. I mean, the Bible does say you won't be king in your own country, but we should at least have something established elsewhere. Everywhere you go in the world, there's a little China. There's an African community. There's a Haitian community, the lady. I've never heard of a little Bahamas nowhere.
No. I think I heard some comments made this morning on a radio station about Taiwan. How the government, I think, make it mandatory that their citizens save 20 or 23% of their income. In the sign, they have posters that say all drug traffickers will be executed. And they give you, there's some other things that they mention, and they ask you twice, do you understand that? You cannot chew gum and spit it out on the sidewalk or anything like that. I think the country is Taiwan, I think he was referring to in that.
I know the Philippines has that law too, where all drug traffickers are put to death. They get the death penalty. Yeah. So yeah, and you know, some communist countries are okay. Like if you look at Cuba, I think people need to be controlled to a certain extent. Everybody gets bread basket items in Cuba. In Cuba, you walk down the road, you get your loaf of bread, you get your butter, you get milk, and you know, stuff like that. The government provides that. You pay 15 cents for gas if you're a local and 25 cents if you're a tourist. The same way in clubs. To get in any of the clubs, the locals pay $1, the tourists pay $10. You know, and so there are benefits, and Cuba is self-sufficient. Cuba is the sex capital of the world, and they have the lowest AIDS rate in the Caribbean. They have the lowest sexual transmitted disease rate, because when you have a sexually transmitted disease or AIDS, you are then quarantined, and so you only interact with people. So you know, they control the spread of the disease, and so you live in a certain part of the country. But with 15 million persons, they are self-sufficient, and they don't borrow like we do. You know, so I think to a certain extent, we need some level of control. And then in other countries we go to, like Greece, they run away from Greece because when you graduate from school, there's no sitting on the blocks. There's go to the army. And I support that 100%, Patrick. What you was going to say? Tell me what you were going to say.
Yeah, like I said, Cuba is self-sufficient. So we look at communism as the way that Castro built, run Cuba, as something that we shy away from. But but some of his policies are very, very beneficial for the population.
Correct. Nobody overweight in Cuba.
No,
nobody. I mean, they don't have the fertilizers and all the Americanized stuff, but they ain't overweight. We have an obesity problem.
Yep.
Okay, so all of that, to me, that's beneficial. And therefore that they have the best doctors in the world, but they don't need them as much as the rest of the world does for hypertension and all these other diseases.
And they have a population of, like you say, 11 million.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
a population of 400,000.
And we can't even get bread and milk back
Right.
on our bread basket items. This is just ridiculous.
And it's amazing how many people are just, transit between the PMH and the clinics here.
Okay. For these, because of what we eat.
It looks like a social, it looks like a social gathering or social event going on.
Yep, never bed, nothing never available. Everybody overworked. Too many hours. The nurses and doctors need a burnt out. You know, so that's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, like I say, when I watch the government school graduation, when they combined it, 5,500 children graduated and 100 high school diplomas, my heart ached, because that meant 5,400 children left school with a leaving certificate. That was in the first year that they put it on TV. Okay, what possibly? There was no jobs. What can they possibly do? Put them on the defense force. Train them, somebody do something.
Yeah, I think we have
Go make them go to the army. Don't let them sit on the blocks. Now we having gang wars.
Yep. So our educational system is failing us, but is really creating havoc on the society.
Yep, correct. So this is what I'm saying. We need some of you. Because Patrick, we could talk and we could identify every issue, and we don't do nothing about it.
No.
So, and Ms. Bullock can talk a lot, but we need some of you to get this country to where it needs to be. We need an uprising of ethical future leaders to wash the parliament and replace all these people who had the system blocked up for 40 years. Now it's their sons and daughters with the same vision and the same, way of thinking that this is a job and they could make some money or build a big house in 5 years or what have you. Wash them out of the parliament. Get this country to where it needs to be, and then fix all these issues that, 400,000 people, we could do it. Other countries doing it for millions.
That's what yeah,
and billions of people surviving better than us. Okay, so think about it. And this electricity, we have sun 364 days out of 365, but we paying for gas and electricity. It's ludicrous. Okay, because buddy is own the oil company or the gas company where we getting this oil from.
Yep.
Okay, we have to move away from all those things, and people suffering and living without electricity. Okay, so a lot of things to fix, Patrick, and I hope that we could network and get together, and like I say, like-minded persons brainstorming, and each politician, I feel that needs three, somebody for the line, like 3 educated persons with them, 4 people together supporting one person. That person could be effective. If each politician had 4 ethical persons to support them, they could be effective and do something in the country.
We have too many of them in Parliament now. Too many of them.
Yeah, but I say we need a washing now. We need a washing. No more children, no more out of this. You said you don't bring your daughter and your son and none of them. Or wash all of them. Wash the whole PLP and the FNM, the DNA and them activist people, and start afresh. People who are educated, who have sufficient experience, who act ethically and don't see it as a job, the way I could make some money.
Right. That's the mindset they go to Parliament with.
Yeah, let me get this big house before they vote me out. Let me get these contracts to set me and my family up for the rest of our life.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, we want to do something about it. We don't just want to talk about it. Okay, so as you're doing on the right track, educating yourself, building up your network, and being effective when you get out there. So very good. Any other questions or concerns? No? Okay, so for those of you who didn't have the opportunity to watch the Netflix, is the HSBC case with the Mexican drug lords. Again, everybody who watched it so far seems intrigued and found it beneficial. It's for awareness. It's to protect you when we all work in the financial services sector or in areas that are susceptible to risk. So like I said, protect yourself. Sometimes these things that happen, we just wouldn't even thought of it. You know, our minds don't go that far. And so all of this creates awareness for you. Okay, so I hope that you have some time and you watch it and you're able to come back and discuss it next week. Okay, but if there are no further questions or concerns, you'll have a fabulous week. Feel good and unwind and digest this, and then next week we'll pick this back up again.
Oh. Yes.
Okay, Steen, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah. I was just
Go ahead.
Does the final go deeply into the legislation?
Does it go deeply into the legislation?
I mean, the questions.
No, it doesn't. Just it doesn't go into the framework. One or two multiple choice questions, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, as you go on into intermediate and ICA, you'll find that you have to leverage off the legislation or quote, Bahamian law states A, B, or C, or what have you.
Right.
So they would be points of reference.
Okay.
Okay, but definitely, like I said, tipping off, failure to disclose, know those and know the penalties and the correct penalties. Always on the exams.
Thank you.
The name of the movie is Dirty Money. It's the case with HSBC and the Mexican drug lords.
Cartel Bank, you'll see. That's the
okay, Cartel Bank, yes.
Yeah, that'll be the password that you can look for. You see that word, you'll see. That's the movie you want to watch.
The word?
Cartel Bank. Cartel. Yeah.
So Dirty Money, and then put Cartel Bank and it should come up on Netflix. Okay. Okay, guys. No other questions or concerns. We'll see you. Have a productive week, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hmm.